Welcome to The Buzz, where we bring you leaders in dental education discussing hot topic courses and industry trends. I'm your host, Vanessa Emerson, founder of Dental Speakers Bureau, and today I'm here with Genevieve Poppe. Welcome, Genevieve.
Thanks for having me.
I've been really looking forward to this. Thank you for being here.
Now, me too.
Genevieve, let me tell you a little about Genevieve. From dental assistant to practice owner, and with over 2 decades of dental industry experience, Genevieve brings a unique perspective and real-world experience to her presentations. And we are going to speak in this interview about her presentation that's entitled The Practice Building Mindset, Secrets to Growing a Thriving Practice. Well, that sounds like it's a meaty course, but I'm not quite sure what it's about. So maybe, Genevieve, you could give us a little more information on, what's happening in the dental practice that would attract a typical attendee. What's happening in their world that this helps resolve?
Right. Well, I created this course because I work as a consultant with a lot of practices, and in many cases when they call me, it's because they want to grow their practice. And a lot of times what that sounds like to me is, we need more new patients, or we need to find more new patients. And something that I train people on are new patient conversion skills and phone skills. But really, when it comes down to it, there's a lot more that goes into really growing a practice than just getting new patients. So I created this talk to kind of talk not only about how to evaluate your success at converting new patients, but also to talk about the other factors that really have to be in place in order to be growing a practice.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more then about specifically what you cover there?
Sure. They're not going to be secrets anymore.
Just between you and I and anybody else who's watching.
The secrets are really being brilliant at the basics, but coming to think about them differently. So I really think what I teach are some things that people look at commonly as like fundamental things they don't look forward to in the practice, like recare and retention and case acceptance. And they're things that people have come to really feel frustrated with. And I think partly they feel frustrated because of the way they think about it, and that they haven't had other approaches to be more successful with them. And I think, really the gift I bring to those processes is just a more authentic style of communication and getting alongside of people instead of fancy verbiage or sales tactics. And I think when you can get people comfortable with a new way to feel about those steps in the practice, they get more confident and more natural with them. And that's where a practice really goes into growth instead of churn.
Is this a workshop? Is it more lecture? Is it interactive?
Right. That's a good question. I can style it a couple of different ways depending on the audience, right? So if I have all doctors and all doctor study club or mostly doctor group, they probably don't want to workshop verbiage skills or role play with me. And in that case, I'll talk a little bit more about how they can evaluate their team's effectiveness in these areas and some tips to bring back with them. And if I have more of a mixed team, I do like to get people a little bit more engaged, give them some words to practice. If I have a longer time, I might get them up in role playing. So it kind of goes between lecture and workshop, depending on the amount of time I have and depending on the audience that I have.
Which leads me into my next question. What do you suggest? Is it, it sounds like it could be for just doctors or doctors in full team, like anything on that spectrum. Where do you find the sweet spot? What do you think of this presentation is best for what?
So I like to have doctors or sort of doctors and admin teams is where I find it probably the most relevant. I think a lot of times for doctor-only groups, this is a huge blind spot for them, and that they don't really understand the steps or the roadblocks that their front office teams have. So I really like to have doctors in the audience because a lot of times they just don't, one, they don't understand how hard it is to be good at this. And two, they just often don't even have it on their radar that this could be a limiting factor in their practice growth. But for the admin or front office type team members, I really like to give them as much immediately actionable content as humanly possible in the time that I have.
Oh, that's awesome. You're doing so great on queuing up my next questions, because I was going to ask you, how much time would you like to have? What is it this normally? Is it half a day, full day, an hour?
My ideal setup, I love a half day. But I can make a very engaging, more lecture style piece out of this if I have 90 minutes. I can kind of touch on it and create awareness in an hour, but 90 minutes to 2 hours is good. 4 hours is more workshoppy.
Got it. So it could be keynote or study club format or breakout session at a conference, anything in between.
I've given it in a lot of iterations and, well received. It just sort of depends on the group and what their needs are and what their pain points might be.
Sounds great. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything that we haven't talked on that would be important for the event planner to know about this presentation?
I think it would be important to know that it is such a versatile presentation, that it works well for different types of groups. I've also given it to like specialty groups, which is interesting. I think a lot of times specialty groups that are used to really living on referrals, that's changing for them. So it works really, really well for that type of a group as well. But it's flexible. And I think because I have such a practical experience, it's just commonly been very well received and very relatable, and I'm really proud of that part of it.
And I know that this is one that you really enjoy, the topic, and I'm sure you consult in this area all the time and have many years experience, and it shows that you shine when you talk about it. So Genevieve, thank you for sharing that with us. And there you have it. For more information on bringing Genevieve to speak for your next meeting, visit dentalspeakersbureau.com. Genevieve Poppe, last name spelled Poppe. You can find her alphabetically on our listing, or you can reach out to me at info@thedentalspeaker, and I'd be happy to connect you. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, be well.